Hello, I'm Tom Martin, and welcome to another episode of the San Francisco Conservative, the new podcast series featuring yours truly, Tom Martin, longtime journalist. I'm coming to you from Washington, D.C. today. It's where I got my start at CBS News, and then to Good Morning America in New York, and Charles Kuralt and CNN and so on. And I love conversations. I love learning new ideas, and that is why I love conversations with my dear friend David Parker, author of Income and Wealth and a San Francisco conservative, joining us from San Francisco. Hey, David, how are you today?
I'm fine. And how are you there in Washington, D.C.? How are you doing?
I'm great. It brings back a lot of memories. I first came here in, I think, about 1978 to go to college at Georgetown and got involved at CBS News here, and even worked one election night here in Washington with the legendary Walter Cronkite. That's a night I'll long remember. So it's nice to be back. And being here in Washington, it has me thinking about regulation. And I know you've, in your books, Income and Wealth and a San Francisco conservative, you've written about, what proper role of government in scale back that interference, no interference. And that has me wondering, what is the proper role of our corporations? Before we started, I was mentioning how I love Apple products, my iPhone, my iMac, and so on. But I do know that the conditions of some of their workers in China is not very good. So how does it work? Do we need the government to impose tariffs and penalties and regulation, or is it enough to trust the people?
It's enough to trust the people. That means everybody knows that if a product has bad sources. I mentioned once before Gap, everybody, or Levi Strauss, everybody buys those jeans. And you go to their website and it looks like they're very conscious about who they're hiring and what the work conditions are. And that's only because they were caught being the worst in the field. And now they make lemonade out of it by saying, we never do something like that. We're in the forefront. And Apple just has to be busted. It's got to get a good headline in the New York Times. Apple hires like crazy, and people will get the message.
Yeah, I remember. I can't resist interrupting with. I remember going back, I don't know, 5-7 years, something like that. Wells Fargo, the huge bank that I believe is headquartered there in San Francisco, got into some trouble pushing investments or something like that, or just overstepping, established boundaries and pressuring clients. And then they had a big radio campaign how if you can trust us more than anyone to hold you by the hand and make sure everything is good. It's like, how it sounds like an oxymoron to me. I don't.
No, you brought up a very good point. The government can step in and say, you can't do that, but the market can do that just as well. This nation is filled with attorneys looking, ambulance chasers looking for a case. All they have to, the citizens united in the sense of a class action suit, go after Wells Fargo. Look at what you did. We want a big fine and a big punishment, so big that maybe they'll put you out of business. That's how the market responds to fraudulent dealing. Wells Fargo was fraudulent, and people weren't paying attention because during the 2008 financial crisis, Wells Fargo behaved actually responsibly. They weren't one of the banks that had really gone nuts, and so they were very strong, and they bought up all kinds of banks who failed during that time, and people weren't paying attention to it. The antennas went down. Wells Fargo, oh, they're fine. And then they just pressured their loan officers to write deals that the depositors weren't even aware they were subscribing to loan services or something like that and paying a fee for it. That's what that was all about. It's about the fees. And that was complete fraud. And they got caught, they were busted, and they were fined. Yeah. And they won't do that again.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I don't know, this is kind of off on a tangent, but it brings to mind a funny photo I saw recently. It's a picture of the rapper Snoop Doggy Dogg standing next to Martha Stewart in her kitchen, and they're making cookies together or something like that. And the little caption is, only one of these people went to federal prison. Guess which one? And of course, it's Martha Stewart. So just because people tell you they're fine and upstanding, it's like you need to dig beneath the surface a little bit. I don't know. So
well, don't get me started on that one, because Martha Stewart was framed. They wanted totally framed. They couldn't get anybody from the 2008 financial crisis. They couldn't nail anybody. And then Martha Stewart did a little something. She inside information. Someone said, sell that stock. The owner of the company says, sell the stock. He sold it. He told his parents and his children to sell their stock. His children and then him and his parents weren't busted. Only Martha Stewart was busted because the SEC couldn't bust anybody. And they said, let's get somebody good. And then they kept after her for so long because they couldn't find anything. And finally her company, Omni Media, something like that, $400 billion company, was losing value in the stock market, was going down and down because the trial was, or the case was trailing so long that she started to cover herself a little bit, to make excuses to lie a little bit to keep so the stock value wouldn't go down. And they caught her for fudging. At that point, they couldn't nail her on what they nailed her. They caught her trying to protect the value of her stock. Is that in itself somehow is illegal?
I see. I had not heard that.
200 billion. She was protecting it because it was trailing so long. They got her for that. That is really bad. They wanted to get somebody, and everything was wrong about that.
I had not heard about that. That is interesting. Yeah. And you're in an interesting position there. And I'll just throw in here real quick that if you're joining us midstream in this conversation, this is a San Francisco Conservative, a new podcast series featuring author David Parker from San Francisco. David's the author of Income and Wealth and a San Francisco Conservative. And I'm Tom Martin, a longtime journalist who loves asking questions, thought-provoking questions, and coming to you from Washington, D.C. today, on the road a little bit. David, you're in an interesting position there. You've been in business as an investor, as an entrepreneur for many decades, and you're there in San Francisco and the heart of Silicon Valley. In talking to some friends, they tell me about, the Elizabeth Holmes trial, that blood test venture, and how she conned some people out of, many, many millions of dollars, kind of like the Bernie Madoff scandal here on the East Coast. I live in Connecticut near New York City. And then maybe it's a bit unrelated, but I have some friends who are very interested in cryptocurrency, and cryptocurrency has really plummeted recently. I did not get involved. I don't know enough about it to take that risk. But is there something in the thinking out there that facilitates, people like Elizabeth Holmes or people that start these little crypto token businesses? What do you think?
Yes, freedom. We got to get rid of freedom. That'll do it every time. No. Yeah. You can't be monitoring every single person in the nation 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And that's why we have government, is to protect us from bad guys.
Yeah.
But protect is not provide. We don't look to the government to take care of us. We look to the government to protect us. And the free market also, we have two protections, because when you commit fraud, you get caught. You can't keep it up.
Yeah. So it would be counterproductive to our own best interest to put up too many regulations, like, we need to prohibit that and prohibit that and prohibit that.
Yeah. I'm a member of the ACLU. That's how San Francisco conservative I am. Yeah. Kind of in parentheses, not that conservative.
Right.
But I'm thinking of resigning, because the ACLU is not what it was when it first started. And the founders themselves, they've retired, and they're furious. The ACLU today is a progressive organization whose main goal was before was to get Trump out of office. Now their main goal is to keep him out of office. That's not what the ACLU was about. The ACLU got its claim is that they would defend free speech, and that there's They would defend the Ku Klux Klan. They would defend the American Nazi Party. They have a right to speak. And we're a Jeffersonian society that says we can think for ourselves. And the famous Supreme Court Justice, I think it's Felix Frankfurter, says, don't censor. Get it out there. Let the bad guys speak. And don't be afraid of the American public. They can think for themselves. When the Nazis speak and the Ku Klux Klan speaks, they're ruining their own self. Everybody can hear everybody got the message. Now we know who you are because you can speak. And the ACLU says we will defend that because any reason we give for not defending that is going to be turned right around against us when we are defending something that we really care about. We don't care about the Ku Klux Klan. We care about maybe abortion or whatever we care about. And whatever reasons we use not to defend will be used right back in our face and prevent us from defending what we do want to defend. I like that argument so well that I joined the ACLU.
Yeah.
They were not a perfect organization, but they were doing one thing right, and that's better than doing nothing right.
Right. Yeah. No, I admire that. That's good. That's good. That's good. I might be shifting gears a little bit here, but we started our conversation talking about corporations and growth and how they can prosper and what decisions they're making and so on. And I would just love to hear, and I mentioned Silicon Valley, where you are there. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what we need to do to grow the American economy. Is it a lack of skilled labor? I mean, I guess the unemployment rate is low now. I guess that's one good thing. And again, thinking about that quote unquote inflation, that it's a misnomer. But some people say, well, a lot of scientists and engineers from other countries are needed over here, and you're a lifelong educator. It might be kind of like turning a cruise ship around. It's not going to be done instantaneously, but we need to reform the education system. I'd just be curious, some of your thoughts on what we can do to really help American corporations and business grow.
Well, you have opened up 25 subjects there, Tom.
Sorry. Yeah.
Let me see. There's no reason for a government in the economy. The economy self-corrects for anything that goes wrong. I heard an expression, I think it's called B corporations, or corporations should be doing something for the public, should be giving back. And Milton Friedman says, no. Corporations start thinking about social issues. They're being distracted from their main goal. And those corporations will not last. That's a road to destruction for a company to be distracted. From what I've studied, the Dow Jones Industrial Average in 1961, there's 100 of the top companies. You would think that most of them would be there today. 3 are there today. 3.
That's amazing.
Because in a competitive economy, the most efficient corporations overtake. And what's called creative destruction. New ideas replace other ideas, and maybe in a brutal way. They just will crash the company. But that's what a dynamic economy is. In fact, the dynamic economy has an Achilles heel to it. It has a labor shortage, always. We don't have to worry about growing the economy, and certainly not the government. Social workers shouldn't be making economic decisions about growing an economy. That's just not their job, and they don't know. China has the same problem, has a labor shortage. They're regretting their one-child policy now. After World War II, Japan had no economy, and Korea had no economy. They finally got with it, became industrialized, free economies, and both of them suffer from labor shortage today, and their prices are as high as our prices. Their standard of living is as high as our standard of living. And China has that Achilles heel. We're talking China taking everything away. Pretty soon, China is going to have such a high price. No one's going to buy from China. They'll be the same price as we are. already middle level management in China is very high. They can't get people to run the factories who know what they're doing. And those prices are soaring. They're on the way out. Not immediately. They'll be stealing from left and right now, but that's the future. That's what government does not need to be involved in the economy. The economy self-corrects and the economy expands at its own pace. If there's creative people with new industry, that economy is going to grow. If they're doing stuff that nobody wants, which is socialist economies generally, the Soviet Union produced stuff that nobody wanted, nobody bought anything. And even today, if they didn't have natural resources, they would be a third world country. They don't produce anything. Nobody owns one Russian product or even thinks in terms of a Russian product.
Right. Yeah, I don't look for Russian cars out on our highways.
Yeah, I'm going down, maybe a Mercedes or maybe, a Slovaknik. No one's
I know, that's true. I haven't heard that lately.
There.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, I think that over to my wide sprawling questions there, you captured it very well about the importance of freedom and flexibility and giving creative people their full opportunities. I think that's a great way to close. So I just want to thank you, and I want to remind people to be sure to pick up copies of David's books, Income and Wealth and the San Francisco Conservative, on his website, davidparkeressays.com, or on Amazon. So thanks, David. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for inviting me.